Hello, this is Arcade789 and this video is the second installation of the Mindset Street Fighter V series. In this video, I will cover the usage of block strings and frame traps. Combo execution and matchup knowledge covers a lot of ground for playing Street Fighter, but I think it's important to know block strings and frame traps, because this adds pressure to the opponent and lightning pressures you as a player. Block strings are a series of moves that force your opponent to block. While this sounds pretty bad at times, this forces your opponent to block. Forcing your opponent to block lets you do several things. As Gutek said in his Street Fighter V guide called Fighting Game Fundamentals, block strings allow you to build meter, combo if the opponent doesn't block, and leave the attacker safe as the defender is blocking. Also, safe spacing and conditioning stem from this. A good way to think of block string is entirely block combo. This way the opponent has no choice but to defend or receive more immediate damage. Blocking certain attacks creates great health that regenerates slowly over time. If the opponent is hit, unblocked, while he or she has great health, their life will lose great health as well as additional health loss. For example, we can see here that Ryu's crouching medium punch produces, makes the gold bar no longer gold and makes it green. And as we look closely, we can see that gray health is produced. Now, if Ken were to be hit while he has gray health in stock, you can see that all the gray health is gone, and the red health, which represents the damage received from the light punch I just did, pretty much you create red damage and gray damage. So it's dangerous to be having gray health at times. A good way to create a block string, we need to think about how moves interact with each other. So, for example, let's look at Ryu's crouching medium punch to the Hadouken. Let's set Ken as a reversal Shoryuken, fastest move. We can see here that as Ken blocks, block. As we can see here, as Ken blocks, he will do a Shoryuken. Now, a true block string is when we do a combo that's blocked, but actually forces the opponent to block the whole thing. So we notice that Ken can only do Shoryuken after the Hadouken as opposed to the crouching medium punch. That's because the Hadouken comes out so fast after the medium punch that Ken has no choice but to block. Now, if Ken were to release block after the medium punch, he will receive the hit. Now, frame traps can be risky, but unless you know what you're doing, this allows for damage opportunities and counters to players mashing buttons. Frame data plays a major role in this, particularly the activation frames and block advantage. And sometimes certain special cancels act as frame traps as well. I kind of want to take a look at, for this video, I kind of want to take a look at the thought process on how frame traps work and how they are developed. Let's consider Ken's fastest move, the light Shoryuken. So the light Shoryuken comes out in 3 frames, and the active frame for damage comes out in the 4th, 5th, and 6th frame, and so on. So, as we can see here, Ken's Shoryuken often acts as a good reversal, which is when the most immediate time you can attack after a block. So it has 3 frames of activation, right? And let's also look at Ryu's safe options in regards to frame advantage and block. So when Ryu's blocking, when Ken's blocking, one of Ryu's safest options is crouching medium punch. On block, Ryu gets +2 frames, meaning he recovers 2 frames before Ken does after Ken's block. So, as we can see here, blocks. If Ryu attempts to block after this, he will succeed in defending himself. So, if Ken were to mash Shoryuken as a reversal, I can block him because he is safe. Now if it was +1, the same principle applies. Now if this move was negative past 3 because of Ken's 3 frames, so a -10 block, a -10 block stun, then I will be hit because I cannot block time. The relationship between Ryu's advantage frames and Ken's activation frames determines what the next move should be used for flame trapping. So, with Ryu's crouching medium punch, we can see that's +2 activation frames, and with Ken's shuriken in mind, which is 3 frames, we add those together. That gives us 5 frames. 5 frames of what, you might want to ask? It's actually how long after the block that Ken's active hurt box will come out. So, Ken's shuriken will hurt 5 frames after he blocks. So what then? Let's look at Ryu with his 4 frames of let's look at Ryu with his move that has 4 frames, which is less than the 5 frames of frames that Ken has to deal with. So, Ryu's crouching light punch is 4 frames. Pretty fast. While Ken's move will start hurting on the 5th or 6th frame, depending on user input delay. Ryu's crouching light punch hurt box will appear before Ken's. This results in Ken getting a counter hit, and is vulnerable to a cancel Hadouken by Ryu. So let's see here. So we can see that we can counter hit. So yeah, we can see that Ken tried to do a reversal. Now, if I were to do crouching medium punch into crouching light punch, if I can do it, we can see that Ken gets knocked out of his shuriken. Ideally you want to mash sometimes, so he can get out the first. Of course, this is assuming if Ken is attempting to perform a shuriken. If he's doing EX shuriken, then you're kind of in trouble, but he's spending meter to do that, of course. If Ken does not, however, perform a shuriken, he is still left in block stun, because he doesn't have to do anything but to do so. So this is a frame trap. It's still an advantageous position to be in, since Ken's blocking. Another example is crouching light punch linked into crouching light punch. As we saw just a moment ago, I did 2 crouching light punches. And that's like that. We notice that, and look at Ken blocking both of the hits. This is because I chained both my crouching light punches. If I were to, say, delay my second light punch just by a tiny bit, which is called linking, and if the opponent attempts to retaliate, hence the Ken Shoryuken, the opponent will be hit. Otherwise, they'll be still in block stun if they, don't retaliate. Now, this is a little tricky, but I think I can manage it. There we go. Up, up, up. Now this takes some execution, of course, but with practice, it's not that hard. Actually, certain specialists such as Ryu's EX Donkey Kick, the core circle forward double kick, this move, can frame trap players as well, depending on how slow enough the move is. Cancel frames are a bit more complicated to explain, so consider experimenting specials after normals. You may find something practical to use in mid-game. For example, with Ryu, crouching medium punch into EX Donkey Kick is a frame trap. It's actually very simple to do, and while it costs 1 meter, it does allows Ryu to combo pretty hard. That's about as much as I know about block streams and frame traps. In summary, what you want to do in terms of the frame data is to add advantage on block with your opponent's activation frames. You take that number and you want to find a move that you have that is less than the amount that you of the sum. Do note that spacing is also important, as some moves can whiff after the first block, so experiment in the lab. So you can see here, if I spam enough that my move will whiff. So do some experimenting in the lab and see what you can find. Thank you for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe for more content from me. See you guys around.